You are listening to the Will Power Podcast. Welcome to the show. I am Will Holdren, and I talk with some of the most influential CEOs, entrepreneurial leaders, and thought leaders to reveal the secrets that have led to their success. I believe that with the right knowledge and mindset, you can do anything you say your mind to. So if you want to learn how to change your life for the better, if you want to learn how millionaires actually became wealthy, or if you want to develop and start your own business from the ground up with the right knowledge to help you, then you are in the right place because this is the Willpower Podcast. How's it going, everyone? My name is Will Holdren. I am the host of the Willpower Podcast. Today, we have an incredible stud Christian entrepreneur who is based out of the Arizona marketplace, and his name is Brickman Allen. And Brickman is an international speaker. He's an author. He's also the creator of something called the Live Outside Method, which is just an amazing thing. I'm sure we'll jump into that later in this episode. On top of that, he's a really just incredible story. If you guys do your research on him, he was actually given a 10% chance of survival after fending off a home intruder one night. So just a really incredible story, and just really blessed and honored to have him on here today. So Brickman, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, appreciate it, Will. And thank you so much for the invite. I'm looking forward to digging deep and hopefully learning something together.
Yeah, my pleasure. Like I said, I love your background. I love entrepreneurs. I also love Christian entrepreneurs specifically. So you definitely fit into that category. You're definitely doing a lot of great things out there, which is fantastic to see. So starting out, I want to ask you a question I ask all of my guests, which is one, what makes you want to take time out of your crazy busy day to hop on podcasts like these to really just share your story?
You mentioned about how at one point I was 10% chance of survival. Coming through that, God kind of spoke to me and he kind of let me know, hey, look, this is what I got from my experience. I could keep going on the path I was going and be absolutely successful in business, but God had greater purpose for me, and he wanted me to really focus on helping other people elevate themselves to a different level of living, a life of joy and happiness no matter what's going on. And so because of that, I felt this drive for the last 21 years that any opportunity I can to bring hope or teach people that whole live outside mentality, I take it. And it's been an amazing adventure. I've traveled all over the world. I don't say this very often, but I've actually done it on my own dime. To any Christian function that I'm invited to go to, I do it on my own dime. And mainly because I just feel like there's purpose behind why God made me successful in a business sense, is so that I could dedicate time and the financial means to go out there and spread this message that he's given me.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And before we jump into your story, I really want to jump into that and really what led up to that event, and obviously how your life kind of changed post that event, because that's a very traumatic experience, obviously. But before we jump into that, do you mind explaining a little bit more in depth of what your live outside method really means and what you're trying to really deliver to people, and just a message you're trying to convey to people with that mindset?
Yeah, I think that right now, especially with social media, we are so involved with seeing who we are and how we compare to other people. And yet true joy and purpose in life comes from living outside of ourselves. We live outside of the fear we create, or the fear that's there, that we live outside the anger that maybe comes into our life, live outside the expectations that others set for us or we have set for ourselves, live outside limits of just what people think is possible for us. But most importantly, the ultimate way that you live outside is live outside yourself and seeing the world around you as a Christian and thinking, how can I lift this person up? Every single person you see, you can lift. And if you're constantly thinking that way, that's when you're truly living outside yourself.
Yeah, and honestly, you're making the world a better place too. When you're
Right.
seeing who you can lift up, who you can help, that's really how this world becomes a better place at the end of the day. So I absolutely love that mindset and love what you're doing there with that purpose. So that's just really cool to see. So jumping into your story, obviously you said a lot of things changed after that traumatic event, obviously when the intruder came into your home. But leading up to that event, I know you mentioned your business. Were you always an entrepreneur growing up? And what was your main business, that you were going after?
At the time that this happened, I was actually working for somebody else in sales. I had the entrepreneur bug early on in my life. At the age of 14, my mom came to me. My father's business was struggling, and she said, we typically buy new school clothes for the kids every year. We can't afford it this year, but I'm going to help you buy it yourself. And so she lent me money to buy ingredients to make cinnamon rolls.
Nice.
And I made those cinnamon rolls and then had to pay her back, buy new ingredients. So the first round was a wash. And then she taught me how to plan out and budget. And my mom, who's a stay-at-home mom, taught me how to be an entrepreneur. And so that spirit was always there. And I think what's powerful, for those of you that are listening, I'm sitting here with a cowboy hat on. I'm straight up cowboy. And what I love is the cowboy was the original entrepreneur.
True.
They found a way to do things. They'd be out in the middle of nowhere, no resources, figure out a way to accomplish their goals with what they had on hand. And that's what my mom instilled in me. So even though I was not an entrepreneur in that moment, my entrepreneurial spirit of always trying to figure things out and go a little bit further and do a little bit more and make things a little bit more efficient, all those things, I was getting promotions. And they kept telling me, oh yeah, you're never going to get promoted, you don't have a college degree. And then 3 months later they'd offer me the promotion, say, well, guess what, you're never getting promoted because you don't have a college degree. And it just happened over and over again. So I was on this amazing trajectory of success, even though by company policy I wasn't supposed to be having that trajectory, but it was because of that entrepreneurial spirit that I brought into my workplace every single day.
Yeah. And that's really just encapsulating that live outside the method, right? I mean, live outside and really push yourself, push your boundaries, and you're really going to make it happen, at the end of the day for yourself, which is cool. And speaking about living life to the fullest and being productive as possible, which is so important for entrepreneurs, one of the main things you can do is begin to take something called Magic Mind. Magic Mind is really a healthy mental performance shot. I actually became a Magic Mind ambassador months ago, mainly because of all the amazing health benefits I was able to get from it, but as well as the burst of energy I was able to get for it that completely replaced my morning coffee during the day. I've been taking it for months now, and honestly, it's completely changed my focus and my energy levels each day. Luckily, for the ones that are listening, you guys can subscribe and try the drinks for free. Only pay shipping for a trial 3 bottles pack. Again, just for the first month, that'll be completely free for you guys. Just cover the shipping. To take advantage of this, click the link below and type in the code Mind Growth Trial to take advantage of the free drinks. I really hope you guys try it. And I really think it'll help you guys transform your day going forward. So talk me through. So you're working in sales, getting promoted with this company. And then is that, at the same time when this intruder came into your home and a lot that whole night happened? Is that when that happened?
Yeah, so I've been working at this company for about a year, and had been married for a year and 1 month.
Okay.
And one night on a Thursday, we came home and clicked the button to close the garage door and just didn't make sure that it shut. And I grew up in an area where you just didn't lock your front door. So I didn't lock my inner garage door. Somebody coming through the next morning at 5 a.m. on July 11th, 21 years ago, saw an open garage door, went in, checked the house, and saw that the house was open. So he just walked right in, grabbed my wife's purse. We're married a year. We just bought a house. We have no money, but he's going through, it's crazy. He was going through that purse while sitting on my living room sofa eating M&Ms. And when he didn't find it, what he wanted, he threw the purse on the ground, went into the kitchen and grabbed an 8-inch chef's knife, then took his shoes off and quietly crept into the master bedroom where I was still sound asleep next to my wife. And they're pretty sure he was on drugs, but we don't understand his motive. But when he got into that room, for some reason, he grew so angry that he stabbed me in the chest with that chef's knife so hard that he broke 2 ribs with the handle, sunk it all the way to the handle. And instead of stabbing straightward, he went right under my right pec muscle and went downward kind of towards my belly button. So it went through lung, diaphragm, and into my liver. And that's when I woke up.
Wow. Wow. That's insane. Yeah, I mean, I definitely cannot imagine that. And to your point, I lived in a small rural area in Pennsylvania too, where you kind of just left the doors unlocked. You knew everyone living around you, so I really can't imagine like that happening. You know what I mean? But the possibility is there, obviously. So, but thank God you came out and you survived that. And like you mentioned, so the doctor said you had a 10% chance of survival. When you heard that news, I mean, what's going through your mind at that point?
It was crazy. So they brought me in, they removed a third of my right lung, they repaired the diaphragm, but the liver was 15% functionality. And so they actually put me on life support for 3 days in an induced coma. And the first day they went and talked to my parents, they literally told my wife and my parents to come in and say goodbye because I wasn't going to make it 24 hours. The only reason that one of these surgeons gave me a 10% chance of survival is when doing the surgery, my beliefs are that I don't drink alcohol, I don't smoke, I just live a very clean life. And he basically told me that because it's the lung and the liver, alcohol and smoking, those are the things that can damage those things. Because I didn't do that, he said that there is a slight chance that I'm going to make it past 24 hours and have an opportunity. So that's where that 10% came from.
Wow. Wow.
And yeah, so like my family thought I was going to die. The breathing machine was breathing for me 3 breaths for every one I could take. They put 33 units of blood into me. My body only holds 9. I mean, I literally flatlined a couple times and they brought me back.
Oh my
So
gosh.
when that happens, I came out of the coma and they're saying, hey, great, you're coming out of the coma. You got this 10% chance of living. You realize when you hear everything that I went through, in the moment, all of a sudden, it came to me that this was no longer my life. Yes, God gave me my life when I was born, but he's given me a second chance. And that was the point where I'm like, okay, where's my life going and what am I doing with it? And
Yeah.
how do I say thank you to God for giving me this other chance to make something more meaningful out of what I was doing with my life?
Yeah, that's such a tremendous mindset, I think, just to have in that moment, and that there's really two ways to look at it. Like, all this is really bad, or the same thing, like, man, God is really blessing me right now and giving me another chance to really go out there and make a difference in life and really impact people's lives in a positive way. So,
I think the key for having a good mindset like that is we're so focused. Again, it's the live outside the moment. We're so focused on the moment and how we're affected by the moment that we don't look back at our life and realize we've been taught amazing lessons all through our life that can help us get through any obstacle we're currently in,
yeah.
without a doubt. To kind of give you some insight, when I was 8 years old, I jumped off a trampoline and I was trying to do a Superman where I jump off the trampoline and I'd land on the ground. I was the coolest kid because I was jumping, 6 feet in the air. I thought it
Right.
was huge. I landed on the ground on a nail that went completely through my foot.
Oh,
And they rushed me to the hospital. It was an all-day ordeal to get it taken out because they didn't know if it damaged bones and everything like that. But the reason why I share this story is because I got home, and again, my mom teaching me life lessons. We're sitting alone. I'm in pain. They just gave me some painkiller. My mom asked the question, why do you think Jesus Christ allowed this to happen to you? You're a good kid.
hmm.
So here I am, this 8-year-old, and I remember thinking, why? Why would Jesus do that? And I asked her, I said, I don't know. And she said, who else has had a nail put through their foot? I go, well, Jesus. She goes, can you imagine having it done through your other foot and your hands? I said, I can't. And she goes, that's how much he loves you.
Wow.
So my
Wow.
mom from an early age taught me that when we go through a hardship, if we take a moment to reflect on that hardship, either right after we pass through it or in the midst of it, we find God's hands and what he is trying to teach us and prepare us with for future opportunities. And so when I'm in this moment of extreme pain, I passed out in the hospital. I passed out 2 times because my pain meds wore off and the pain was so intense, it just knocked me unconscious. Right. It's in that moment that I remember that story of my mom. And then I thought about, well, Christ took upon all my pains and he went through this for me too. And that's what triggered it. It was that lesson from an 8-year-old standpoint that triggered my mentality and taught me that I needed to change my perspective and my approach of what I was doing in life.
Yeah, that is so powerful. And kudos to your mom. That's such an amazing lesson to teach your 8-year-old son who just had a nail go through his foot, but that really does put things in perspective. So she was,
Yeah, it changes how you look at things. Like
yeah,
seriously, if you ever look back at one of the hardest times in your life and say, what was God trying to teach me and for what purpose? We always find something.
yeah, yeah, no doubt. So, I mean, how long were you in the hospital for after that incident that night?
So within about a day of coming out of the coma, they told me, great news, we're going to upgrade you to 50% chance of survival, and you're going to be here for about 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And it was interesting because my grandfather was present when they said that. My grandfather starts laughing. He goes, my grandson's going to walk out of here in 10 days. And it was absolutely amazing and such a miracle and an outpouring of evidence of faith of people praying on my behalf because I walked out in 9 days.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's so inspiring. That really just shows like God working in someone's life.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really matter what the doctors tell you or what medicine you're going to take. If God wants you to stay in this life, stay in this world, and continue on, he's going to make it happen. So I think that is such a true and just really cool testimonial story that you have that can really share that message, which is incredible.
And I think the biggest thing is God sometimes throws these hardships at us, these moments that are just overpowering and overwhelming for us because there's something greater we can do with our life. And we're not on the right path. And so sometimes these are corrective measures to put us on the right path. Not saying God does bad things to us, but it's more as though he allows things that can empower us and strengthen us to happen in our life. We just see them as bad until we take the right perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. I think it also allows us to be able to change and live the life that he really wants us to live. It might be painful in the moment for us, but just like you're talking about earlier, after that event happened, you really have a new mindset about life, a new realization, and things just really kind of switch on and you really start to really live, and I think that's so tremendous to just see. So after that event for you, I mean, obviously touch on a little bit more, but really, how did your mindset shift after that? Did you stay with that sales company you were with, or is that when you kind of just separated and really did your own entrepreneurship stuff, or what did that look like for you?
I stayed with them for a little bit, and again, I think that it's all about the path we follow and the way we live. So I transferred to another company, a competitor, met this amazing person who became a mentor, just Christian based, just the right mentor I needed in my life. I stayed there for a year and then I left and I started to build up a real estate property management, portfolio management firm with my brother and my dad. It was something I always wanted to do, was do a business with my dad and my brother, and started that up and really did amazing for the time that I started. I started in 2007, 2008 when the
Oh, wow.
market's crashing. So I left corporate America, and this is based off of God kind of telling me I needed to change.
Yeah,
I left corporate America making close to six figures to my first year. I think I made $10,000.
that's a big swing.
And
Yeah,
yeah, but it was amazing. We came together and we created something that's lasted 15 years. It's still in place. I still own part of that company, and just created opportunities where I was free with my schedule as an entrepreneur to go and speak and share a message of hope and love.
yeah, yeah. So now primarily you're going around speaking, right? And obviously you're an author and international speaker. So I'm assuming that's kind of primarily what you're doing at this point.
Actually, a year and a half ago, I bought an architect firm, and I'm not an architect. It's so weird. So I built my premise on the fact that if I always went out and spoke at these Christian events and I didn't charge anybody, that God would help my business to flourish. And so I had one business that was flourishing. It allowed me to speak. I came across an opportunity, and this architect firm, what we specialize in is we go to rural schools in Arizona and we find these rural schools that are falling apart and they don't have the funds to fix what's going on. We actually go in and teach them how to get state grants, and then we help them fix their schools. 80-year-old schools now look brand new when we're done with them.
Oh, wow.
And so I fell in love with what this company is doing. It's creating new from old. It's taking places that people don't want to go to, and now they love going to it, and all these different things. And so I connected with it and took a chance on it and left my other company that was flourishing and came over to this company. And it's
Yeah.
just been phenomenal, so much that I'm like, okay, now God's telling me again, I've given you two companies that are going to provide for your family. You need to go out and speak more. And so that's where I've been speaking more. That being said, 21 years of speaking, I've done over 300 events. I've been as far as Eastern Europe, Alaska, Oregon, from those extremes.
Oh, wow.
And every single time is an amazing opportunity where I feel like God led me there.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Honestly, I think the whole architecture business, yeah, it's a really great cause, obviously, and making old schools look brand new. It's got to feel good deep down inside, So that's super cool. And I think you're definitely, following through with what God's purpose is for you and God's mission is for you, which is really cool to see. Um, so I want to ask you this. So there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are Christian, right? But they might struggle finding out what their real passion is or really what the direction that God wants them to go is. So without them, getting staffed, obviously, but how can they feel like they're getting closer to God and really finding out, that they're walking in line with God, that, they're following through with the passion that God wants them to do.
I saw something the other day that kind of hits this right to the point.
Hmm.
God gave you a talent as a gift to you. What you do with that talent is a gift back to God. So if you're wondering what your passion is, look at what your natural abilities are and see how you can use that natural ability that you have to give back to others. And that helps develop your purpose, right? I mean, if that's what God gave me, he gave it to me for a reason, and I better use it to uplift his kingdom and his children.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. Yeah. I think a lot of people struggle to, jumping into something and just being kind of nervous about it's really not going to produce that much money, or how's it going to work? How am I going to make this work in life? But at the end of the day, I think God's the one that has the master plan in his hands, right? So he's the one you got to just gotta put your faith in, take that leap of faith and just trust that he knows where you're supposed to end up, right? So, but it's
Yeah.
just a tough mindset to have starting out for a lot of people, I think.
It absolutely is. And I'm fortunate because growing up with the lifestyle I have with being a cowboy, I was taught when you get bucked out of the saddle, you get back on the horse. And so my parents actually taught me that fear is an indicator of an opportunity for greatness. And
Mm,
so when you're fearful of something, starting a business, taking that risk, what one of two things is happening is it's not really fear, it's anxiety. Like fear is, hey, my life's in danger. Like I experienced fear when I was stabbed. So I
yeah,
understand that there's a difference between fear and anxiety. If your business falls, if you try a business and it falls apart and you lose all the money you put into it, guess what? You can make more money. You
yeah,
can land on your feet. There's people that will support you and help you. It's not the end of the world, right? So there's that side of it that we got to let fear be an indicator of good or fear be an indicator of opportunity. Now, I'm going to say this, and this may be controversial for some people. If Christ brings light and faith, Satan brings darkness and fear. So, can we maybe assume that when we're afraid of something that we are excited and passionate about, it's Satan recognizing that we're going to be amazing and he's trying to stop us from all the good we can do by putting that little bit of fear in our path?
yeah, yeah. That's very true. Very powerful. And just like you said, I think a lot of times, the space where you're going to grow as a person, as a human being, is stepping into those gray areas, those fear areas, and that's how you're going to level up in life. So just like you, I mean, I'm sure it was scary for you when you left your six-figure corporate job to go and make $10,000 a year. So I'm sure that was a scary point in your life at that point. But
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, and the hardest thing is when you do that, when you've got a family and kids, you're not just doing it for yourself and putting yourself at risk. You're really, putting your family at risk.
yeah,
I've actually got a good buddy of mine that during the downturn, here I am starting to build a thriving business. He owned a tire company that folded, and good Christian man, just amazing. I always looked up to him as just this person that I aspired to be like. And he moved. He was my next door neighbor, and he had to move away.
oh
And I
wow,
found him like 5, 6 years later, and I said, "Hey, what? Oh, man, that was so tough. I'm sorry you had to go through that. What did you do?" He said, "I went back to school and I became an attorney, and now my life's even better than where it would have been at. And I would have never left that tire shop because I was too scared. I was too scared to do what I was passionate about." He's like, "So God had to push me past the line, and once I was past the line, it was point of no return." He's like, "It's been an amazing time ever since."
yeah. That's such a good point. I really think that that brings up the question too. Like the old question, why does God let bad things happen to good people? And I think to me, it's just you don't know what's on the other side. Like it may look bad now, but like you mentioned, 5 years from now, it could be a really good thing. Could be the best thing that ever happened to you, right? So it's just all about keeping that perspective, down the line. Um,
And I think it's asking the right question. Instead of saying, "Why me, God? Why are you punishing me?" It's,
yeah,
"Why do you trust me and think I can get through this?"
yeah, yeah, that's very true. So I'm kind of curious. I mean, when that incident happened for you, when you were, scheduled to be in the hospital for 6 months, I mean, I understand that, we're putting our faith in God and we're realizing that, God went through worse trials and tribulations back when he was here, all that fun stuff. But were there ever times during that 6 months period where like, man, like, I don't know, like this is scary. I don't want to do this. This is, making me not really put full faith in God. I mean, were there ever doubting moments going on in that 6 month period?
There really wasn't, but I
Mm,
think it's because my mom had taught me to look back. I mean, part of the story. So the book that I've written is not even about my home invasion. It's about my time in high school where I was bullied to the point of depression and suicidal thoughts.
oh,
I thought I was worthless in this world. And a teacher stepped in and certain people stepped in, said certain things. I put certain things into practice. By the time I graduated high school, I loved myself as much as I loved God. And so when this happened, I had already been through my darkest moment. And again, this is where that live outside comes into play. As I looked at my family and how much they were struggling to forgive this man and move on and just try to find the positive in it, I recognized that if I went dark, I was going to take them to a darker place. But if I tried to bring light and hope and faith, then it would bring hope, light, and faith to all of them. And I think what it is, and I got to give credit where credit is due, it was Christ. Christ recognizing that my family needed me to heal for them to heal. And so Christ created those miracles where I was able to heal not only physically, but spiritually and mentally and in every aspect. So that when I walked out of the hospital in 9 days, not only was I up and about and moving, which was a miracle, I had completely forgiven my attacker, didn't know him at the time, complete stranger. I had a love for him, a deep love for my attacker that's really hard to explain. And I left feeling safe and secure so that I never once have had a nightmare since. And I attribute that to Jesus Christ recognizing that I needed to heal because everybody else's healing depended on me taking that first step.
Yeah, that is so powerful, and that really can just help you like take your life to a whole new level. You can just forgive. I mean, something like that happened, and forgive that person. I'm curious, have you had a chance to speak to that person since that event?
I have not, mainly because my theory is we had DNA on him. We had a sketch from the police that matched his look exactly. He basically was admitting to it and he did a plea bargain to just get a shorter sentence.
Mm,
And so my theory is that he's mad at the system. He's not mad at a person for putting him in jail. He's mad at the system. And the minute I step forward and say, "Hey, it was me that you attacked, and I'm the one behind all the legal trial," and then he's going to be angry at me as an individual. And let's just be honest, Will. There's only one Brickman Allen in the world, and we're all just individuals. But there's only one you Google. There's only one of me. So
yeah,
it wouldn't be very hard for him to find me and take out
yeah,
that anger on my family. So for purposes of safety for my kids and my wife, I've never approached him to talk to him about it. Someday maybe, but right now is not the time.
yeah. That's pretty fair. Pretty fair. And I love that too. So you mentioned you published your book, obviously, and it's kind of about your story back in high school and how you overcame getting bullied and stuff, which I think is a really really important message for kids, especially nowadays. And so when you're going around speaking, is it mainly at high schools and for elementary schools for kids like that?
Yeah, so for monetary, I get paid to speak at high schools.
Yeah,
I also get paid to speak at corporate events. It's again, I kind of made a deal with God. I don't like calling it that, but I basically prayed and said, as long as you help me out, I'll go speak at a Christian places for free, but I need another means to be able to help support me in doing this.
right.
And but yeah, I usually my favorite thing about talking at schools is I go in there, I share my story being bullied, I share how we can overcome anything if we stop focusing so much on ourselves. If we realize that 3 days after we wore that shirt 2 days in a row, nobody even remembers it, whatever it is. If we just get past our own insecurities, we can have these amazing experiences. But what's amazing is at the end of all of those events, I always allow people to ask questions. And without fail, one student will raise their hand and say, "Do you think God helped you get through it?" Now, I can't talk about God in the school setting, but if they ask me the question, I can answer it. And I
Awesome.
feel like that's part of the reason why I get to do it and God helps me do it is because then I can answer and say, absolutely, God empowers us to get through the hard things. And he's always with us in our moment of need.
Yeah, that's
And yeah, and that's life changing for some kids, that have never heard it.
yeah, especially in our school system nowadays. I mean, how things have really changed. It's definitely a bright spotlight when you can go in there and just say something like that, and like you said, it's going to change someone's life, which is really cool. So good purposes all around. So it's really cool seeing what you're doing. Before we run around time here, just got a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
One, going forward for you and your life, obviously with your businesses and all the speaking games that you're doing, what are some of your main goals that you're trying to get accomplished here, in the next couple of years?
So my goal is within 5 years, my youngest will graduate from high school,
Awesome.
and at that point, my wife and I would love to go serve missions for our Lord and Savior. And so right now, I'm in overdrive, trying to figure out financially how I can put things into place so that I have that generational income that's just never going away that allows me to be free with my time and really focus on ministering to others.
Yeah, I love that. Where do you guys have any ideas in mind where you want to go and do mission trips or anything like that? Or
No idea at all.
Wherever he
It's
takes you, right?
yeah, exactly. What's amazing is, my wife, it took her about 12 years, 15 years to get past what had happened, trauma wise, forgiveness wise. She's an amazing, strong person. And originally, I don't think that she would have ever left the country, but we were asked to go speak to refugees from the Ukraine and Russia that were at a Christian conference in Eastern Europe. And she decided to tag along. And we went and spoke, and just being a tool to see some of that healing between Russians and Ukrainians
Wow.
changed her life. And she's just like, this is what it's about. This bringing people together with love is what it's about. And it gave her courage to really push her own boundaries and live outside a little bit more.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I love that. And to your point, I think society and media, they always push us that like, oh, we're all so different from one another, and they make us kind of like hate a different party, for instance. But at the end of the day, like you said, like we're just people. We're all people. And it's the whole point of life is to help other people become better and get better and be selfless in their own life. So I think
Yeah.
that's so crucial. I love that. Yeah, so my next question is, what is the name of your book? And besides your book, what is the number one book recommendation that you would give for people to read?
So I would say my book is called The Bully Guard. It's currently available on Amazon. I'm doing it at 40% off because the school year's coming up. I wanted to get it into many kids as possible. If
Yeah.
you're listening to this, even in the first couple months of the school year, it's definitely not too late to buy. Uh, man, there's so many great books. I can tell you the Bible. I can tell you, I'm an LDS, so I can tell you the Book of Mormon. But if you want to talk about a business sense, I've got it right here, so I'm just gonna grab it for you.
All right.
So it's kind of crazy, but it's your world-class assistant.
Hmm.
And the reason why is I'm one of those people that I've always had a hard time giving up and delegating. And I picked up this book, and it taught me the power of delegation and the freedom it gives us as business owners, as entrepreneurs, to not only focus on the things we're passionate about, but the things we're good at. And those things that waste our time for 90% of the day, we can hire an assistant that can do all of it. And if we find the right one, it's amazing. So this book set me down this path. I ended up hiring an assistant. She's phenomenal. Her name's Michelle, and she's actually says, my job is to make you look good and make it look like I'm not even hearing that you're doing it all.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
talk about live outside, right?
Yeah.
I scored a home run with that one, but this book sent me down that path. So it's a great book for a resource for somebody that's trying to figure out how to take their business to the next level.
Awesome. Well, I'll definitely have to check that one out. I have not heard of that one, so I'm glad you brought that up. That's good. Last question. Is there anything else that you'd like to say? And if people want to reach out to you and find you, how can they go about doing that?
So my website's brickmanallen.com. You can go and contact me there through there. Inkwell Management is my agent for speaking. I would love to come and speak at corporate events, to your schools, to parents' nights, to your Christian camp, whatever it is, your sports teams. My whole desire and purpose in my life is just to try to give back, because this life is no longer mine. It was given back to me. And I'm just trying to use it for as much as I can.
Yeah.
But to anybody who's listening, look at and consider how you can live outside yourself. Forget yourself and see others. My favorite quote is my grandfather, and he says, when you're in your darkest moment, in your darkest trial, if you go and serve somebody else, you will find that there is absolute light in your life.
Hmm. That is so good. I love that. And just a really great mission on top of it. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Your story is absolutely incredible. I'm sure we're going to inspire many people that are listening to this episode. So again, thank you so much for that. All right, guys, there you have it. Brickman Allen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.